Hello out there. Thank you everyone for tuning in today to this edition of EW Live. We have a most distinguished guest today, Dr. Kim Fagan. We're so glad that you're here today. I can't wait for you to share your expertise with the EW community out there today. You did a workshop about probably 3 or 4 months ago on this very issue, or this very topic, sleep. And it was well received, and folks have asked for more of it. So thank you for being here today. Look forward to all you have to say on that. And before we go into some introductions on Kim, just a little housekeeping. For those of you who don't know, we did a food drive for the last 2 months for a backpack ministry for after-school kids to make sure they had enough food over the weekend. That was a great success, so thank you for everyone who donated. For the next 2 months, April and May, we will be doing a money drive for Jesse's Place for women and children who are homeless. EW will commit to supplying 4 meals.
Wonderful.
And anything that we raise, we will use that money to purchase more meals for Jesse's Place. So you have different ways to donate. We'll put it in the comments line. If you're in our clinic, you can just scan this QR code and Venmo in your memo line, or you can write a check. Make sure you do in your memo line, put Jesse's Place Food Drive. So thank you in advance for that. We appreciate all the support. I know they do. So Dr. Fagan is in our presence today. She is newly appointed Chief of Sports Medicine at UAB, which is they don't know how lucky they are to have her, which is in the Department of Family and Community Medicine. She is responsible for training the fellows, residents, and also is maintaining her clinical practice and is training the next generation of physicians to do what she's done so wonderfully well in private practice, and now taking all of that education and expertise back to train the next group of things. So welcome to the topic on sleep. Is it really all that important? Before we kind of dive into that, can you kind of tell us how your journey, how you've ended up where you are today, your interest in sports medicine, your interest in health, wellness, lifestyle management? I know you've got tons of years of expertise in that. We won't say how long. I thought about saying when did you start, but no, we won't do that. So, but just share us a little bit with viewers a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. So my background, I went to Auburn just like Ethan did. After Auburn, I was at UAB for medical school, and then actually I initially started out in internal medicine and board certified there. And then at that time, sports medicine was a very new thing for non-orthopedists. And a guy called Jim Andrews happened to move to Birmingham around the time I was finishing up. And I had the opportunity to work with him. And I thought I was going to do critical care medicine, and ended up sports really interested me a lot, and had the opportunity then to do a fellowship with Dr. Andrews. And following that, I actually went back to UAB and practiced there. That was my first job out of fellowship training, was to be the first non-surgical sports medicine doctor at UAB, and took care of their athletes and taught there to begin with. And then later was fellowship director for Andrews and Lemack at ASMI, before I opened my practice here in Homewood at Fagans Sports and Lifestyle Medicine, and have spent the last 20 years right next to Ethan and Mike Eskridge, and have had a wonderful relationship through those years. It's been fantastic. It's been wonderful. And then this new opportunity just presented itself at UAB to be Chief of Sports Medicine there, and it's just I love to teach, and I love that opportunity. It's just something I really couldn't turn down. And so I think it's going to be a nice way to round out my career. Still having the great relationship with Ethan and Mike here at EW. So I'm really looking forward to it. It really offers me some wonderful opportunities I really could not have anywhere else, I think.
So that all sounds fantastic. And for those out there that would like to get more information on this topic, or speak with Dr. Fagan, or schedule an appointment, we're going to drop in the comments line the phone number that you can contact. I'll just say it now. It's 205-934-9700. They'll be more than happy to take care of any issue that you have. Most importantly, I think, is the wealth of knowledge you can't take it with you. So I think it's very, very cool that you're sharing that, which leads us right into our topic today.
Yeah.
Sleep isn't really all that important. And, Dr. Fagan, we talk about nutrition, we talk about exercise, we talk about lowering stress, all those type things as keys to healthy lifestyle. But is sleep really all that important as a key to being healthy?
Yeah, so the way I like to think about it really is like a three-pronged stool. So sleep, exercise, and nutrition are all equally important to keeping us really balanced. So if one leg is missing, the other two are not going to work very well to kind of keep you balanced and straight. So the three are really equally as important when you're thinking about those things.
Okay, so equally important, and as we kind of go through today, I really want us to kind of chisel out sleep and the different things that affect. But just I think from a physiological standpoint or mental standpoint, what happens when we do get a good night's sleep?
Sure.
Okay, what really happens?
Yeah, so sleep is a very active process. So, you just don't close your eyes and everything shuts down. There's a lot going on while we're sleeping. So sleep is a restorative process. So when you go to sleep, you're repairing damaged tissue. There's protein synthesis. There's a lot of hormonal activity that's going on. That's when our sex hormones are really kicking in. Growth hormones, so it's especially important for children, but also as we're getting older for repairing type activities. Our sex hormones are also active at that time as well. Mm-hmm. Melatonin kicks in. It's important for sleep, but it's also important as an antioxidant. So that's an active time as well. Leptin is active during that time, and so that's for fat activity, for burning down fat, breaking down fat. Right. Cortisol levels are activated then, so if they're not like they should be, you're also going to have trouble with weight loss as well. It's active for our immune system, so if you're not sleeping well, you're going to have problems with your immune system as well. Memory incorporation happens at night when we're sleeping. Right. So if you're not able to incorporate what you've learned during the day, that's problematic as well. So those are all key things that happen while we're sleeping.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's great, and we're going to dive deeper into some of those because you bring up some very interesting topics, and I think one that would be good is about folks cramming for tests. You talked about that in your workshop.
Absolutely.
About how that's the wrong way to go. That's the wrong way to go, just in terms of how sleep works and memory preservation. So we'll dive into that. And you mentioned a little bit the effects of what happens when we don't sleep well, and I think we'll talk more about that as we get into it.
Yeah, we can break that down.
We'll break it down a little bit more, but I think there's a lot of there are a lot of issues that come about that. So when we sleep, there's a lot of variation in sleep habits and all that. And so in terms of can we get too much sleep or can you get too little sleep? Let's start with that and some things that happen or can arise in terms of disease or distress or things like that if you get too much or too little sleep. And then I think that'll lead us into maybe what normal ranges or recommended ranges are.
Sure. So I think, when we think of things that can affect our sleep, let's think about those things that can cause us to have too little sleep. There are actually things like pain can affect our sleep. Obviously, if you're in pain, you can't get comfortable. There's problems sleeping. There are times of our lives which make it difficult. I remember when I was going through menopause, that was not a very good time for sleep. Your hot flashes, night sweats. Pregnancy was another bad time for me where you can't get comfortable. There are certain things like depression where either you have too much or too little sleep as a side effect of that. People who have Alzheimer's or dementia have trouble sleeping, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, kids with ADHD, those type things will lead to problems. Things like restless leg, where you just can't get your legs still, would be a problematic thing. Sleep apnea, where you just can't breathe very well, can lead to disrupted sleep. There are other medical conditions. There's something called adrenal fatigue or adrenal stress, where your cortisol levels are all off, that can be problematic for sleep. Things like thyroid conditions can often lead to problems with sleep. So you do want to look for medical conditions that can be problematic because those are correctable. Many of them can be. So you want to look for anything that might be a correctable issue. So that is something you're looking for.
It's an excellent point. Excellent point. So ideally, and I think that'll lead us into the next question I have for you is, but you can do obviously too little.
Right.
You can obviously do too much.
Right.
And both can lead to many of those issues that you just described. So if we were going to do sleep recommendations, and I know this varies individually, but there are recommended ranges. And I think we get this a lot here from parents, from where their kids are out playing 2-3 sports at a time. They're taking AP classes, or they're just in school. We want them to take AP classes.
Sure.
Oh, and by the way, I want our viewers to know that we are unmasked today. This
Yes,
made me think of this.
we should have said this at first.
Said this because we are both vaccinated and we have the separation. But we really do encourage everyone to continue the safety protocols and to get vaccinated. So,
yes, please.
But back to the topic of what we see in kids, they're just run ragged. Are there specific ranges in that kids should have, young adults, activity level, etc.? What are those ranges, and what do we typically recommend?
Sure. You know, I really hate to hear people say, oh, I can get by on 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night,
Right.
because that really is not true. That is detrimental for you, because like we talked about the importance of sleep and what happens while you're sleeping. Those are necessary things for good health.
Sure.
So for adults, say from our 25 to older, 7 to 9 hours is what you typically think. As we get older, 65 or so, 7 probably is fine, but you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep as adults.
Sure.
When you're in your teens, though, you need more than that. You need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And they're, like we were talking, many teens do not get that.
Why do they need 8 to 10 hours of sleep? Why is that so important?
Well, we were talking before about that's when your growth hormone is really there and kicking in. That's when they're studying, taking those AP classes. That's when your memory is being consolidated. So if they are taking those AP classes and studying, they need some time to have that memory consolidated so that they can really incorporate that. So they may have that knowledge base, but if they don't get it really incorporated into their brain, they're not going to hang on to that knowledge.
Would it be fair to say for every parent that's pushing their kid to be a D1 athlete or to get a scholarship to Harvard that one of the most important things you could do for your child is a good night's sleep? Yeah,
and the other thing we didn't mention too is that your recovery time is much better if you get a good night's sleep.
Right.
You're less likely to be predisposed to injury if you get a good night's sleep. Your balance is better if you get a good night's sleep and not sleep deprived.
Right.
All of those things come into that. With sleep deprivation, if you go, say, sleep deprivation can be really compared to being drunk. Okay.
Right.
So if you go more than 24 hours without sleep, that's comparable to a blood alcohol level of 0.10, which is legally drunk.
That's amazing.
So I mean, you have to keep those things in mind.
Right.
that is legally drunk.
Yeah.
So you're then predisposed to car accidents, predisposed to injuries, anything that would go along with being drunk.
Yes. You know, that's a great analogy, and it's factual.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we hear it over and over. As often as we're with kids and parents in our practice, just that they're excessively fatigued. They're not doing well in school. They're running from practice to practice, and I think you've hit the nail on the head on, prioritize. If you want to prioritize performance, you want to in the classroom and on the field, you've got to prioritize sleep along with the nutrition and the other things. So that's a great question. If we talk about kind of those guidelines, and I think there are a lot of things we can talk about here. But if I came and was sitting with you and I presented that as a parent or as somebody that you were treating, and you asked the question, tell me about your sleeping pattern, your sleeping strategy, and I said, well, I don't need that much sleep. I sleep 5 or 6 hours. I typically watch TV in my bedroom, in my bed. I kind of play on my phone. I've got, these what would be kind of some strategies, or what are some typical or very common issues you see. I mean, alcohol, wine, wine, just drink, caffeine.
I think you're
it's
naming them all.
But I mean, I would love to go through some of those because those,
Sure.
as routine as those sound, those are the issues we hear over and over and over
Oh,
again.
they're the most common ones I think there are out there. So, if someone really wants to get a good night's sleep, and we talk about sleep hygiene basically.
Right.
There are things, lifestyle changes that you can make. There are environmental changes you can make. There are then just some good sleep habits that you need to kind of put into place. So thinking about just lifestyle changes, one, exercise is a good thing for sleep.
Right.
Okay, it is.
Right.
But you don't want to exercise like 2 hours before you go to bed.
Right.
You want to give at least a 3-hour gap before you go to bed. Food and dietary things that you want to think about. You don't want to eat a really heavy meal right before you go to bed. You don't want to eat a real spicy meal right before you go to bed. Caffeine, you would really like to cut that off probably 6 to 8 hours before you go to bed because the effects of caffeine can last 6 to 8 hours. Alcohol, people say, oh, alcohol helps me go to sleep. The problem with alcohol, it may help you go to sleep, but then you have that rebound waking up from that, or you don't get quality sleep with alcohol. So therefore, alcohol is not a great idea if you're having sleep issues. So that you want to leave that off.
Right.
So the other thing about drinking late at night like that is you're more likely to wake up to go to the bathroom too in the middle of the night. So there's another disruptive factor about the drinking.
Right. Right.
If you're a smoker, smoking also is a stimulant. So smoking also is not a great idea if you have sleep issues. So those are things right there.
And those are all behavioral.
Right.
Those are things that you can change or work on changing immediately.
Right.
But it's just having the understanding that those are detrimental. And,
Yeah.
and we'll talk more. I think I've got a couple of great questions, but
Yeah.
just in terms of why it's so important, back to the hormonal and things for repairing tissue.
Sure.
That if you're not sleeping soundly, and I know in the workshop you talked about some of the stages of sleep, but, and maybe we can talk about that. But what about temperature? I know you had mentioned that earlier in our workshop.
Sure.
Is there a best temperature?
There's studies have shown that about 66 degrees is about the perfect temperature.
That's cold.
Yeah, a little chilly.
That's a little chilly.
Just get in there and get under those covers. And,
Right.
and it's also been shown that possibly even taking a warm bath or shower before and then getting that cooler temperature and allowing your body to just gradually cool down like that is even better.
Right.
So some people will do better even with that. And then also, getting your environment right, getting a dark room, a decluttered room.
Yes.
Getting it where the bedroom is made for sleep and sex. That is it. The bedroom should not be used for anything else. It should not be used as your personal office. It shouldn't be used for the television room. It shouldn't be used for anything like that. Those are the two reasons for the bedroom.
As I say, from your lips to God's ears there on that. Sorry. But I do want to talk about electronics.
Yes, absolutely.
Because electronics have
huge
become,
thing.
Particularly in adolescents and young children, it seems like they become kind of a babysitter for that time before bedtime. And again, it's something we hear a lot and see a lot with adolescents and that are having trouble sleeping. And so, maybe you could talk more about strategies there and really what's going on in terms of how it is affecting or limiting sleep.
Yeah, so it's not just even the stimulation from it itself, but the blue light type thing that really keeps the brain wired.
Right.
And so getting away from that, ideally at least an hour before you say it's bedtime, that's when you really need to start winding away from it, about an hour before. So turning off those electronics, turning off those lights, even the clocks that used to have that light is a bad idea. Bad idea. Just to turn it off and be away from that stimulus like that. If you do want to read before you go to bed, get an old-fashioned book.
Yes.
Or the Kindle that has the kind of a whited out look, not the blue light with it. It will work, but that's the better strategy for it.
Just as a affirmation of this one thing, after your workshop, probably that week I had a family in that had a child. They were going through a lot of things, and the child says, "I'm just not," and we were having a conversation with the child and talking about sleeping, and because he just wasn't feeling well, was anxious, and he was on an iPad for an hour and a half, 2 hours before bedtime, and just a simple recommendation of, look, I want you to to be done by 7. His bedtime was 9. I want you to, take your shower, get comfortable, turn your fan on in your room, get rid of all the lights. Saw him the next week. Sleep was no longer an issue.
I know, it's
It
amazing.
was that simple.
Yeah, it's
just
amazing.
Behavioral, environmental modification goes a long way. This is always a topic in naps.
Yeah.
Should we be taking naps, or I mean, what's the jury on naps? Is it good, bad, indifferent? It depends.
Well, for me, I personally should not take a nap, because if I take a nap, I'm going to be out for 2 hours.
Right.
That is a bad
Yeah,
strategy.
okay.
So naps, if you can take a short nap from 10 to no more than 30 minutes before 2 in the afternoon,
Okay.
it's okay.
Right.
The studies showed that actually a 10-minute nap was ideal, but
Yes.
I don't know anybody who can take a 10-minute
Right,
nap.
right.
But definitely no more than 30 minutes, and definitely not after 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Is okay,
Okay.
to do that.
Fantastic. So, next question, because of a lot of our viewers, EW motion therapy in terms of
Yeah.
performance athletes. A lot of everybody's an athlete in our opinion.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
everybody's always been an
Yeah.
athlete in yours, whether it's a grandmother or whatever, but performance and recovery is
Yeah.
really important. And so I'd like just to our viewer out there, whether you're a triathlete or whether you golf recreationally, the relationship, in more detail, the relationship of sleep and exercise. And then maybe we can talk about the relationship of sleep to performance.
Yeah.
In the relationship of sleep to recovery, in kind of a little bit more detail.
Yeah,
I think
and-
it's important.
Yeah, well, they're bi-directional, really.
Yes.
They really are. So if you're not sleeping well, as we talked about, you're not going to perform well.
Right.
Because for a couple of different reasons. If you're not sleeping well, your balance is going to be off. You're just not going to be performing as well, because one, your concentration is not going to be as good either.
Sure.
So all of those things feed off of that. You're just not going to perform at your peak. If you're not sleeping well, you're going to be more predisposed to the injuries. So that's going to play into that. If you're doing that, and then the other thing is, if you're not exercising, you're not going to sleep as well.
Right.
So
Right.
they just really go so closely together that if you can make yourself exercise, you're going to sleep better. And if you'll sleep, you're going to exercise better.
Right, right.
So they really, if you want to be your ultimate best athlete, you're going to focus on your sleep.
Sure. Right.
Right. That just makes
Right.
it just makes sense.
And from a recovery standpoint, that's when tissue repair, all those things really
Absolutely.
happen. And you mentioned it. Well, I think when we first started, just the hormonal response with pituitary gland and all those things that have
Absolutely.
to happen for recovery to take place.
Absolutely.
And if we're not there, it's just not happening. So you said something too, and I think that first or second question about weight loss and sleep. Now,
Yes.
if I'm listening, and you're saying that my weight loss is directly correlated to how well I'm sleeping,
Yes.
you have my attention. Because I need to drop about 10 pounds to be a better mountain biker. Right? I mean, I went riding with Jackson
Yeah.
this past weekend, and I ride all the time. He really does. And he cleaned lines that I've been working on, and I couldn't do it. And it's because his strength to body mass ratio is much better than mine.
Yeah.
And so I need some help.
With that,
So tell me how I can sleep my weight away.
That and combine it with your breathing exercises,
Yes.
which is also a weight loss
Yes.
technique. So,
but kind of take us back through how that works.
yeah, and it's all based on leptin levels and cortisol levels.
Okay.
So leptin controls your appetite,
Right.
and cortisol is a fight or flight sort of or hormone. And so if your cortisol levels are out of balance, you are going to store fat, because it thinks that, okay, I am in this flight mode,
Right.
and I need to hang on to my body fat because I don't know when I might eat again.
Sure.
So all of that comes into play. And so if you feel like if your body is getting that restorative rest, it really controls those hormones for you, and you respond more normally and naturally to the environment, basically.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That really is fascinating, that sleep is such a component of that. And then combining nutrition, exercise,
Right.
sleep together. I mean, it really sounds like it's just a matter of developing a strategy
Yeah.
and sticking to it. And you talked about spicy foods. Are there types of foods or diets that really are inducive to better sleep? I mean, you talked about spicy foods, that type of thing.
Yeah, there are some foods that have been noted to be helpful. Some of them are related to the fact that they have either magnesium in them or melatonin in them. Nuts, there's some nuts that are that way. Almonds and walnuts both are magnesium or melatonin enhancers. Turkey for tryptophan, we hear of that.
Yes,
Milk as well.
Yeah.
Tart cherries are also helpful, but mainly because of their antioxidant effect and help with inflammation at night. So those are known to be that. Chamomile tea is one, so that's helpful as well. So there's some certain foods. Oatmeal has been known to be helpful. As a food that can be beneficial at night.
Yes.
So just little things like that.
So there's a lot out there really in terms of combining these things. And I think, we kind of joked about the breathing. The breathing was part of the workshop, but breathing, meditation.
Absolutely.
Those relaxation exercises and really just developing a strategy that you can reproduce and be successful in.
And there are a lot of really good apps out now that are sleep aids that are either, music apps or bedtime story apps or, different sound apps that a lot of people will find really helpful for sleep. And a lot of them are free for either Androids or Apple,
Yeah. Well, I tell you, this has been fantastic today. We're going to start closing our segment today. And again, we've just touched the surface.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this: there's no better person in Birmingham in combining all those aspects that I believe than you are.
Thank you,
and so it's always been a pleasure to have you, to be able to talk with you, to actually have your trust and see some of your clients. So we thank you for that for all these years.
Well,
anything in closing you want to recommend to our group before I kind of finish this out here?
No, I think, just if you're thinking about sleep, I think it is a matter of just making some simple lifestyle changes and just really changing your environment, changing a few of your habits, and it can really make a difference. The one thing I will say is if you're having trouble sleeping at night, don't stay in bed and drive yourself crazy. So after about 20 minutes, if you've tried some of the relaxation techniques, if you've tried some of the breathing techniques, and you're still struggling, get out of bed because you'll get stressed about not sleeping and that will just make matters worse. So just get out of bed, get up, maybe do some stretching exercises, maybe have a cup of tea, maybe read a little bit, stay quiet, and then a little bit maybe try to go back to sleep. But don't stay in bed and stress about it.
Yes.
That just makes everything worse.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It compounds the problem.
Exactly.
Well, thank you once again for being
thank
here.
You, Ethan. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Please share this with friends that weren't able to tune in. We will, in the comments section on Instagram and Facebook, we'll put a link to our website, www.ewmotiontherapy.com, where this will be housed, where anybody can tune in and attend it at a later date. And also, please check out on the website under in the About Us section, we just posted a blog, I think, last week on sleep. And a lot of things that we've discussed today are there. And also the workshop that we did, I guess maybe 3 or so months ago, is also housed. And that is an unbelievable resource. Dr. Fagans' piece on that would absolutely be well worth tuning into again. So thank you for being here.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. And until next second Thursday of next month, we'll be back with our next topic. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.